know John F. Kennedy was president? Hello and welcome. I'm Susanna Bailon. All of us know John F. Kennedy was president, the man who occupied this place, the White House, for what some call 1,000 days that changed the world.
But you're about to get to know our nation's 35th president in a very personal way. This item is just one of several hundred on display in John F. Kennedy the exhibition. You won't find it in our nation's capital, but at the Florida International Museum in downtown St. Petersburg.
Right now, I'll be your guide for a very special look at some of the memorabilia in JFK the exhibition. Some of the things are the president's personal items, as well as his family's, never before on public display. You'll also hear from President Kennedy's friends, colleagues, and those he inspired. And you'll see for the first time some rare footage of our nation mourning the loss of a leader. We begin with how this special exhibit came about, a unique story in itself.
One of the main characters in it is this woman, the one who always scored the office next to the president, his personal secretary for 12 years, Evelyn Lincoln. Fondly referred to as Ms. Lincoln by President Kennedy, we could call her the Keeper of Camelot. She saved almost everything she could get her hands on. For instance, when it came time for the president to get a new wallet, Lincoln didn't pitch the old one.
She kept a lot of these things, and they would have been thrown in the trash, literally. Scraps of paper, doodles.
Simple doodles like these are now cherished treasures. And these seemingly insignificant Crayola crayons, not a big deal until you learn they were in the president's desk drawer, brought out when Caroline came into color. This is one of her drawings. Our next figure in this story is a boy of 12 who in the early 60s wrote Lincoln a letter asking for the president's autograph. This response led to what would develop into a close friendship between Lincoln and collector Robert White.
We would share Kennedy stories, and I would use her as a person who I would easily contact, a research type facility, you know, rather than going with somebody, a book or somebody else who wasn't there. She lived it, ate it, slept it.
Then Lincoln started to share more than stories of her JFK days. She began giving White some of her personal Kennedy keepsakes. When she died in 1995, she willed a portion of her collection to White. Some 50,000 items like this photograph were in the basement of White's mother's house in search of a more permanent home. Now they have one at the Florida International Museum.
To save the things that she saved from extinction, she should be definitely thanked.
Evelyn Lincoln first sat in this office as Kennedy's secretary when he was Senator Kennedy and occupied office 362 here in the Russell Senate building. Senator Kennedy won the seat by ousting a popular politician at the height of his power, the Republican Henry Cabot Lodge. For Kennedy, it was an uphill fight all the way.
Long before there was a man fighting his way up the political ladder, there was a baby fighting for his life.
John Fitzgerald Kennedy was born in this modest house in the Boston suburb of Brookline. It was May 29, 1917, and John, or Jack as his family called him, was the second son in an Irish Catholic family that would grow to 9 children.
Jack was born in this room. His mother Rose remembers her thoughts.
When you hold your baby in your arms the first time, and you think of all the things you can say and do to influence him, it's a tremendous responsibility. What you do with him and for him can influence not only him, but everyone he meets. And not for a day or a month or a year, but for time and for eternity.
Jack wasn't a healthy baby, so it was quite a relief when at 21 days old, he was baptized here at St. Aidan's Catholic Church. He wore this christening ring, a gift from his mother's good friend, Mary Moore. As a youngster, Jack was usually cooped up here.
So a lot of time was spent up in the nursery reading to him and allowing him time to recover from different illnesses. His older brother Joe was the role model and the more athletic, healthier boy.
Jack was always trying to follow in the footsteps of his older brother. Such was the case when he went to Choate, an Episcopal prep school in Connecticut. Instead of competing scholastically with Joe, Jack and his chums in this original photo decided to win friends and influence people with their humor and charm. In his senior year at Choate, Jack and 11 other boys formed the Muckers Club, named in honor of their headmaster who called muckers boys who goofed off instead of studying seriously. When Jack went to Harvard College in 1936, he received this pennant from an old mucker, Mucker 3. You can still see 2 of JFK's initials on it.
Here at Harvard, Kennedy again attempted to follow in his big brother's footsteps. But while Joe served 3 years on the student council and his senior year was elected chairman, Jack's attempts at gaining a spot were in vain. He graduated from here in 1940 and turned his focus to serving his country in the U.S. Navy.
Lieutenant Kennedy seemed a natural at the helm of his PT boat, PT-109. So much so, it's hard to believe due to his physical problems since birth, he had to fight just to be allowed out in the action. During Kennedy's presidency, thanks to models like this, a movie and a best-selling book that sparked the mass marketing, the president's wartime adventure involving PT-109 was well known. Respected White House correspondent Robert Donovan authored the book PT-109. Kennedy cooperated, but at first didn't think it was a worthwhile project.
Oh, Bob, he says, you're just flogging a dead horse on this one. He said, we've had this done so many times, we've had stories, we put out slingers in my campaigns about it. He said, everyone knows all about this.
Donovan wanted to do more than a slinger, and so he found himself in the South Pacific, tracing the president's every move from some 17 years earlier. Lieutenant Kennedy's drama began to unfold in the black of night, August 2nd, 1943. A Japanese destroyer rammed PT-109, slicing it in half and causing a fiery gas tank explosion. 2 crew members died instantly, and the 10 others may not have survived without the courage of their leader, Kennedy, who led the way and carried a badly burned Patrick McMahon to land.
He put a kapok jacket around McMahon, and McMahon was on his back, and he really rode on the president's shoulders. It's a hard thing to explain, but the president was swimming, and McMahon was lying on him.
Kennedy, always a star swimmer, landed on the Solomon Islands after a 4-mile swim. For nearly a week, the crew avoided the enemy with the help of natives and existed by eating coconuts. The coconuts were a lifesaver in more ways than one. Lieutenant Kennedy carved a message on one that eventually reached the Allies and led to a rescue.
There was drama everywhere. One of those stories with a very good lead character.
Lieutenant Kennedy received the Navy and Marine Corps Medal for his courage and leadership.
In March of 1945, Lieutenant Kennedy's illustrious naval career came to an end, and he honed in on a new one, in politics, one that would bring him here to our nation's capital at the age of 29. When we come back, the road to Washington, campaign memories and memorabilia. We'll take you to the wedding of Jack and Jackie, and 2 kids in the White House. You'll hear from the man who took this picture and thousands of others, the man with the photographic memories, White House photographer Cecil Stoughton. One magazine, the Saturday Evening Post, went so far as to call him the country's most eligible. But eventually it was a beautiful dark-haired photographer that captured the key to his heart.
Jacqueline Bouvier was in her early 20s when she was introduced to Senator Jack Kennedy at a dinner party at a mutual friend's house. The glamorous pair that would become the first couple of Camelot had a courtship Jackie described as spasmodic. Each was busy with their own jobs, as their passports from that era reflect. The senator proposed to Jackie via telegram while she was in London for the Washington Times-Herald, covering Queen Elizabeth II's coronation. Their romance had progressed slowly and privately, but the wedding, September 12, 1953 in Newport, Rhode Island, was an American version of a royal wedding. 800 people received this simple invitation to the ceremony. 1,200 attended the reception.
With a pretty wife and a politically rising star, the future seems bright for the junior senator from Massachusetts.
The guest list included tycoons, socialites, members of Congress, ambassadors, and Rear Admiral John Harley.
I was the only naval officer in uniform then. It was a grand occasion, there's no doubt about it.
Harley knew Kennedy from his pre-PT-109 days when he selected the young college graduate for PT school.
I made him an instructor. Because we didn't have enough returned combat veterans to be instructors, so I selected the best students to be. And this infuriated him. He wanted to get out into combat right away. He was furious about it. I thought I made an enemy for life.
Instead, he'd made a friend. Harley was close enough to Senator Kennedy to know his friend was soon destined for greatness, something others scoffed at because of Kennedy's age and religion.
I told my late wife, we're dancing at a wedding reception of a guy who's going to become president of the U.S. I said, we got to remember this one, kid. And that's what happened.
Getting married was a milestone for Kennedy. On the eve of the next big phase of his life, he was here in Boston's historic Faneuil Hall, a meeting spot for our country's first leaders, an appropriate place for a Bostonian about to be elected President of the United States.